Hello, welcome to this episode of Reil Reviews. I'm Bryant.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Erica.
And today we'll be reviewing Deep Rock Galactic.
So let's get into it.
Alright, so Erica, we just done a playthrough, which you can also watch on this channel.
We did.
Of Deep Rock Galactic, which you are the one, I believe, this is why you're here today.
This is why I'm here. This is my entire existence, is to be here on this day. To
Whole
review
purpose of
this
today.
game.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
just
Yes.
be here
Not
for this
just
review.
today. The entire
Like,
week.
the whole, yes.
Yes.
So, to start off, how often and when do you think this game would be hitting the table for you?
So while it is a big table game, you don't have to have everything nicely laid out as we do, but the board is fairly large. I would say I'll probably be playing this game as the sole focus of the night. It wouldn't be something that I would bring out to fill time or to kind of transition between other games. It would be like, let's get together and play Deep Rock Galactic, which actually we've done a couple times. We brought it over to my friend's house, which I play the online video game version of with. And so we said, let's play this together. And we brought this out now, I think 3 or 4 times within the last month and a half-ish that we've owned the game. So it's really, it's a light enough game that you can learn it very quickly because you do 3 of only a couple actions on your turn. And they're all very standard actions. So I would say it's easy enough to learn for new players and light enough that you can get into it. But the scenarios do ramp up very quickly, so there's a lot of different gameplay that you can do. We saw only a couple of the very basic enemies on our playthrough.
We
didn't even get into those two big guys. So there's a lot of, I would say there's a fair amount of replayability. And as well, there's an entire online forum of people that have created custom scenarios for this game that you can explore entirely new things. Cool. So more than just the basic scenarios that come with the game. I see this as being like a long-term game that you come back to kind of over and over again because it's a very well put together game with a lot of easily replayable and customizable scenarios that you can just kind of have fun with, and we'll lose most of the time, but still have fun with every time.
But I mean, you got to keep coming back to something, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So for myself, bringing this game to the table, it is a campaign-based game, so I would probably be looking for like that consistent group, which might make this game come to the table a little bit less for me. Because I'm going to want to play it with like the same people, and there's actually a mode in the game called like the Deep Dive campaign, where you kind of keep what you've gathered in a round, and you start with that on the next mission. So it actually incentivizes you to go pick up the extra resources that were around and to not take the hits from the monsters as you're running away, kind of thing. So I think that's kind of a neat feature, but I would want to explore that more when I played this game. Doing this as one-offs, you don't really want to jump new players into the difficult scenarios, so you would end up playing the same early scenarios over and over again. So I would see this hitting the table a little less often, just because you're looking for that consistent group, and sometimes it's hard to get the same group.
And I'd echo Matt with that. I feel like, because it's campaign-based and I'd want to be going through, this is something I would pull out with a regular game group, like if you have every Friday or Saturday night or whatever you do your game group. That's probably when I'd be pulling it out. And, you do a playthrough with a game like this and probably just get another, and then you'd rotate it out to another game kind of after you finish the campaign. So that's probably where I'm at on it. Okay, so Erica, how do you feel about the theme and the immersion in this game? How strong is that?
So I find that they did a really good job with the aesthetic of the game, of trying to recreate a cave in a 2D system. I found, not necessarily on this playthrough, but when I've played through it before and we did have the Praetorian, things get very claustrophobic very quickly, and which I found was recreated very well, because that guy deals specifically with angles of how you're shooting him from the front or from behind.
And if I can interject, I think when he spawned, he was like in a room like this, and we had somebody like here, and it's like, okay, you can shoot him, but he's super armored from the front, so you really want to get like behind him to get some shots off, but there's no cave space back there, right? Yeah. And also, when this guy moves, he just tramples through walls, and he just makes bigger tunnels. It's really cool.
Yeah, I found they kept the theme and the components really reflecting what the game is in the video game. Obviously, they had to translate some things. Like the engineer in the video game, you can have up to 2 turrets. In this one, it's only 1, and it's just the same turret every time. So you don't necessarily see the evolution of the character if you play it multiple times. So you lose a little bit of that theme there of kind of leveling up your same guy if you keep playing him over. But I think they tried to recreate that in the deep dive scenarios.
A little bit, yeah, I think so.
But the minis, I mean, not that these guys are small by any means, but the minis are very well done, and there's a lot of care put into the aesthetics of them, and I think they recreated it as well as they could have done in a board game version of the video game.
Yeah, I think just like looking at the board, right? Even looking past the miniatures, like the board looks like a system of tunnels into big cave openings, right? Yeah. And this is all like just dark space all around the board that you can tunnel into, and like that kind of piece of this puzzle is really cool. And really does kind of get you into the theme of like, yeah, I'm going through this path, and it's like I'm going to break through this wall, and suddenly there's a cave beside me, and in this cave there's a bunch of alien monsters in here and that. So I think they did a good job of pulling the theme into the game, especially with like the way the board is there. One point I will make, I've seen you play the video game a few times. One thing that you won't get as much in this one is that like run and gun feeling. From the video game, just because it is a tabletop version of it, right? It slows everything down. It's more strategic in here than like the video game has a lot of panic to it, right? And it's just like, oh, there's 400 grunts running at me, and I've got to shoot them all as I'm running backwards out of this cave, kind of thing. This one's a little bit more tactical than the game would. So that's the only piece of the theme that doesn't translate as well. Is this becomes more of a thematic one instead of a rush job.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think theme-wise, I think I'm kind of medium. So playing it feels kind of like Zombicide to me. So I think like there are elements that are different. Like I like the tunneling, but I don't want to get too much into the mechanics right now. I would say for me it's kind of a medium theme because I have played other games that are similar, and it didn't feel different enough where I would rate it super high in terms of theme. It doesn't distinguish enough of itself, I think, in that regard.
You don't rock and stone?
No, there are differences. Yeah, we'll get into that with mechanics and all that. But
definitely minus 1 point for not having Molly actively get in the way of you trying to kill enemies.
Yeah.
Because she follows you around in the video game a little bit,
that
and
would be
she can
dreadful
get
with
in
this
your
size
way.
miniature, just like being in the middle and just being like, "Hello, I am here. You need to bring your treasure to me."
I did not get to insult Molly enough in this game.
Honestly, that would have been great.
Yeah.
And like the fact that you can't drop the drop pod on top of a grunt to just squish it, like, come on, game.
I've done that before. It's very satisfying. But yeah, otherwise, let's continue.
Okay, perfect. So in terms of the aesthetics and the component quality of the game, how do you feel about that?
Yes, so I touched on that a little bit before. Sorry, spoiler alert. I do find the minis very well done. I look at that and I say, oh, yeah, that's a grunt, or that's a spitter, or that's a Mactera, etc. And it's very recognizable if you've played the video game at all. I think the minis are well done. I think the cave is the components are fairly obvious what they are. One thing that either we haven't delved into yet is that there are different environments in the video game. There's acidic environments or ice environments.
Right.
I haven't looked enough into the components to see if they do that. But
I don't think that exists, but they may be planning expansions in the future, and that like this, it's probably a game that you could easily make an expansion campaign to a different environment like that.
Yeah. So with the base game, I'm very happy with how they've represented the base kind of levels and environments. The components I find are really nice. It's really fun that you can actually put your gems in the Molly just like you do in the video game. So I'm very happy overall with the components. I think that having the 2 different ammo types is really great, and the gems are nice and shiny as well. So it's very satisfying when you get a gold. Oh, that's your little piece of gold, and you put it into Molly, right? So I'm happy with them.
Yeah, I'd say the miniatures are definitely good quality. Now, I do want to preface, I do have like the deluxe version or the Kickstarter exclusive version. That's how I get most of our games here. So yeah, it doesn't necessarily come with this rollout mat here. There's a cardboard board for it in I think the base version. Component quality, the artwork's great. The miniatures are pretty great. The tiles are good and thick. Yeah, I think the component quality is good. The one component I think is maybe my least favorite is actually this board. I'm not a fan of this style of figuring out critter action and all of that. I think I prefer to have them as individual cards. Maybe that's just me, but this I get a little bit
Just
lost
takes up
in this,
space.
and it takes up a lot of space. Yeah, and you kind of have to have this because this is the order that they all activate in. Yeah, and I think maybe this is bleeding a little bit into mechanics, but I'm going to say it here. The fact that you've got like everything available all of the time, I think maybe is a bit of a miss, because like you could be scaling up difficulty of this by like taking some of the grunts out and putting in a different type of enemy type. And then when you were doing the setup of the scenario, you would just grab the cards that you need for that scenario, right? It's like, these are the different types of monsters that can appear in scenario 2. Grab these 3 cards out of the deck.
But every type of creature can appear because this deck does not change.
Yeah, and that's
very
what
much.
But that's what I'm getting at is that this deck includes everything, so you have to have everything available all the time, and that is actually, in my opinion, it takes away a little bit instead of adds a little bit.
We also haven't played the very high level scenarios.
And they may do something in there as well, but
you still need that board.
Yeah,
yeah,
and you still need this big board that takes up a big space on your table. So that'd be my one negative on the components. Otherwise, like the quality of everything is great, I think.
For me, I mean, I've only seen this version. I haven't seen the basic version.
Yeah.
But top tier component quality for me. So the miniatures are absolutely excellent. And I realize there's going to be a cardboard board and not this. My question is, do these come sleeved or no? Or did you guys add those?
I got the sleeve with the Kickstarter edition.
Oh, so it did come with it.
They sent with the sleeves, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. So the components as they stand here with the Kickstarter edition, I would say top tier. I really do like how the boards are laid out. And like one of you was saying earlier with the 2 different ammo types was really nice.
Yeah.
So I have no issues with the component quality, and I really do like the minis quite a lot. And like you were saying, with this being able to open and actually hold your treasure.
The minis do definitely get a bit big.
Yeah,
you get different pieces in the way, but they do look.
But like you were saying, thematically speaking, though, that does add to the.
It makes you feel a little more cramped.
Makes you feel small. In there, so that's pretty good. So let's talk about the rules and mechanics of this game. Is there anything you particularly liked and or didn't like in the rules?
So as I kind of said, the mechanics as well. I think the enemy sizes actually worked well. It worked well and it didn't work well because, as we said, when this big guy did spawn in kind of a closed off cave area, you could not get behind him. But that is realistic to the scenario because he's kind of in the corner of this cave. So really, you just have to shoot him from the from the front, or just run away and then let him follow you and attack him later. So I think the mechanics of how things spawn is kind of fun. I like the fact that there are some hidden rooms that you don't know what's in. There could just be one of these guys, we could have turned that over and he could have just been having a nap and woken up and attacked us, right?
I think that happened in that playthrough where we opened a room and there was one of the oppressors in, and then the next card we drew was the Praetor card. Or Praetorian card, yeah. And so we ended up with like both of these big dudes in like one room, and it was pretty bad.
Yeah, so I think the mechanics of the 3 actions on the turn, obviously, as we said, it's kind of the board game version of the video game, so all of these things would be happening simultaneously in the video game, whereas we're taking turns and things are activating between turns. I think they translated that well as for the mechanics of things want to get to you and attack you, but you kind of have a little bit of time to shoot them and whatnot in between.
Yeah, kind of has to give you that time in between, or else like you finish your turn and then you just get mauled by a bunch of enemies and you'd be dead by your next turn.
Yeah.
That would be worse.
The mechanics, at first I wasn't, there's a couple cards that say all enemies move and activate this turn, and you could just be standing here right beside an exit and something could spawn and move and say explode on you before you even get a reaction. Some of the cards do have the reaction mechanic, which I very much appreciate that they put the reaction mechanic into. For instance, when that thing grabbed down from the ceiling and grabbed me and threw me.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think that's actually a really fun part of that event deck.
I think the reaction was a very good thing.
You're in the right spot, so your friend can help you, which would happen, if something bursts through the ceiling and all 3 of us are standing here. It's not like I'm the only one that's going to deal with this thing.
Yeah. I would say maybe they could have added that reaction mechanic to the all enemies move and activate this turn, because if something, say, spawns and then if you draw a second card it moves and activates, it kind of would be nice to be like, oh my god, it's a thing, and at least try to get one shot off.
Right.
That kind of felt bad to take a couple hits from the move and activate cards. But I mean, that is also the panic of being in a cave system and having a million bajillion little bugs after you.
Yep.
So you're not going to be able to shoot everything. So
For sure. So one mechanic they put in that I wanted to touch on is the deep pits. So you have the deep pits in here, and the bugs can cross them no problem, but the dwarves all have their own unique way to get across. And I think it was kind of neat the way that they've made it so that every dwarf can cross a deep pit. Like the scout can just walk across, the engineer can put up the platforms, the gunner can throw down zip lines to get across them, and then the other character has drills for hands, and he just punches through the wall and goes around them, kind of thing, right? And I thought it was really neat that they made a creative mechanic for each character to be as mobile as the other characters. So as much as like you feel unique playing a different character, you don't feel hamstrung by playing a different character in certain situations, which I thought was good, and it makes the game easier to play with less than 4 people because you don't need to have that specialist. For the rules, I've read through the rule book a few times. I'm not a big fan of the way they have some of the stuff laid out. It just feels like a couple of things are in the wrong order. Like there's all of the pickup tokens are kind of in the front, but then the pickup action is halfway through, and it explains what you get for some of the pickup ones halfway through the book instead of at the front of the book. And then like the weapon upgrades are like near the attack action instead, and then the effect upgrades are way at the end, kind of thing. It would have been nice if some of those were consolidated a bit better, in my personal opinion. But that's just, I guess, the way I comprehend rules. Otherwise, for mechanics, it's easy to learn the mechanics, and that is a big point. It's really a move, roll some dice, shoot some bad guys. Nothing too complicated about any of that stuff. Resistances works pretty well. One thing I'm going to point out is there's the big random deck effect. You never know what's going to come up in this event deck. You never know what's going to happen in this form deck. You could get into a scenario where you just see grunts all game. You could get into a scenario where you see the biggest baddies and you just get wiped. And I could see myself experiencing one of those like, oh no, big bad guy scenario, and being really not really upset about it, but like having it be upsetting because it's like it feels like there's nothing you can do about it. You just got bad luck.
Disgruntled.
All right, moving on.
Extra point for the pun.
Yeah.
All right, so I agree. You touched on a couple of things I really wanted to touch on. Is I think that the way they differentiate the different characters, it gives them each a good flavor, but without making you feel useless. You know, like, sometimes you have a character who's an engineer but just can't fight at all. But you weren't helpless in combat, you know, and
my little buddy does it all the work.
Yeah, exactly.
Away and I mind things.
Yeah, you have a grenade.
So it's like the way you handle problems is different, but there's flavor to it. So the way things are handled are different, but every character felt like they had a way to deal with things.
Handle it.
Yeah.
We should touch on the secondary weapons
yes.
too. Sorry to interrupt you there, Bryant, but
yeah, no problem.
There is a deck of secondary weapons, and there's a few of them. So we've got all of these are different secondary weapons, and the secondary weapons can be chosen at the beginning of the campaign, and you can use them on any character. So you can use them to kind of double down into one side of things, or to offset your weakness as well. I think Erica chose them for our 3 characters before we even sat down. So.
I didn't even know this was a thing until now.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I wanted to touch on it here. So there is a little bit more customization of each character where you can choose what secondary weapon you want to bring into the fight too. So.
Yeah, so that's good. And then I liked the tunneling for some reason. The map that you can expand, I just kind of like that.
It's cool, right?
Yeah, you can connect these 2 rooms that aren't really there. I like that feature of it.
Yeah, the hidden room is really nice too.
Yeah.
You flip it over and there's a surprise.
Yeah. You know there's a room there, you don't know what's in it, and the fact you can tunnel to get to it just seems cool. And then I liked the... sorry, I'm blanking out right now. There was one more thing I wanted to talk about. But, oh yes, the simplicity of it. So again, it's a very good looking game. It has a lot going on with it, but this is my first time playing it. And it's not an issue to pick up. I think as long as we have one person there that knows what they're doing. One person knows
the flow of
enemies. As long as one person knows the flow of the game.
Yeah.
And how to generate the spawns and stuff like that. It's pretty easy to pick up. So
what's the most complicated part of the game? Like
the enemy actions.
The enemy actions, maybe?
Yeah.
And it's literally just
following the chart.
Read the chart, read the board.
Yeah.
We do get to some of the enemies, especially the big guys.
That's a lot of words.
There's a bit of text there. there's a bit more complication on these guys and a lot more resistances. But really, like, once you've read through it and you've played it once,
Again, if there's one person that kind of knows what they're doing,
Yeah.
it's going to be pretty easy for everyone else to pick up and strategize appropriately. But I think that's one good thing with co-ops in general too, right?
Yeah.
All right, so so final question. What are your overall impressions of this game?
I'm very happy. This was my Christmas present, so I'm very happy, a very thoughtful gift, and having played through it, it wasn't kind of one of those like, oh, it was meaning well, but it didn't quite land. This absolutely landed for me. I think it's one of the better co-op games that we have for bringing to a table, which you don't necessarily. I think Matt was saying that there is a campaign to it, but also because there are so many scenarios available, either officially or unofficially, I could see this, you just bringing it out and playing it with maybe the people that really like co-op games, but you don't want to play the 12th game of Spirit Island this month, you know?
But we like Spirit Island.
Yeah.
Oh, yes,
Spirit
of course. Spirit Island.
Watch our review on Spirit Island. Yeah.
But yeah, so I think this one really landed for me. I have fun with the game every time that I've played it so far. I've lost once, but I think that was a little bit some bad scenarios.
There was maybe a rules mishap on that one too, right?
on that one. So but we've also only played the easier scenario. So I think when you ramp up, it'll get quite difficult. And yeah, so overall, I'm happy whenever this game hits the table.
Yeah, no, I think it's a fun game. It definitely is. It has a bunch of randomness to it, but the randomness doesn't feel like it's super punishing. And there is a little bit of strategy, but you don't have to be a heavy strategy gamer. So it's right in that like middle weight territory.
Yeah.
But it's a fun cooperative game, and in this case, you split the party, but you don't die when you split the party, and that's fun. Like.
In the easier scenario.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see how it
scenario
plays out
12.
later.
Yeah, and maybe that's a good point to make. Is that it is mission based, so you don't have to play a deep dive scenario. You can just break it out and say, we're going to play mission 5 today, and all of the missions can be completely segmented. They don't have to be played as part of a campaign. Yeah. So you absolutely can have people come and go from your campaign. Even if Eric and I wanted to play through all 12 missions, we might do it on a games night and just invite like random people, random friends to play with us, kind of thing, as we're going through. And it's like, okay, today you get to be the gunner for us, and you don't know everything that we've been through, the horrors we've seen, but you can help us on this one.
Yeah.
I think I really enjoyed it. I felt like you were a little bit hurt when I said I gave it a medium for theme, but I really did like the game. It was a lot of fun.
I just have the prior knowledge, and having not played, I can't even remember the other game that you related it to.
Zombicide.
Yeah.
Zombicide.
Yeah. And
maybe I had played that one a while ago.
Yeah. Okay. But anyways.
For me, I visually I see the bugs, and to me they're bugs, right?
Yeah.
They're not relating to anything
Yeah.
Only because I have so much of the bias.
Yeah, no, gotcha.
I played a fair amount.
I mean, you are entitled to your opinion, even though it's wrong.
I could be wrong. I'm not saying I'm the right one here, but I did enjoy it overall. I do agree that it is a great co-op game. I would say it's on the kind of maybe the lighter end of co-op games as well. So it is one that you could easily probably introduce your.
Yeah. It's a bit heavier than Castle Panic.
It's a little, but it's less so than like Gloomhaven or.
Very much. I would say less than Gloomhaven, especially Frosthaven as well. That one came out, and it's got the entire outpost stage, which is really cool. Maybe we'll do a review
or
on that
even
one
Descent and stuff. This would be an easier one to kind of just pick up and throw a group into. So
yeah. And I'm always a fan of me being the hostess that wants to make sure that everybody's having a good time. If anybody ever comes that's not super into heavy board games, I liked having the lighter things that I can make sure that they'll have a good time with, right? So this is a lighter end of a cooperative game. And so to me, this feels like something that I would be happy to play with.
Yeah, this would be actually a good one for like my nieces and nephews or something like that. You could easily pull out and not have to worry about having too much information into them.
Yeah.
So
just move and shoot.
Move and shoot. Take out the pickaxe.
And remember not to oil up your pickaxe.
Don't oil the half of your pickaxe before you go mining.
Yeah,
that really backfired on me. Yeah, they don't have to be shiny in here.
Oily pickaxe and an empty gun. That's how we.
You know what?
But a full mug.
It started poor, but it ended well. Yeah. Okay. Yes. So that is our review. Thank you very much for joining us. So good night and good gaming.
Bye.
Bye.
We should name all of the minis. Every one of these should have its own separate, unique identity.
Theodore.
Bartholomew.
Nathaniel. Oh, Nathaniel looks a little tentative.
Jebediah. We're going very biblical.
Matthew.
Yeah.
Yeah, got him.
Tobias. Kind of straight on that one a little.
Yeah.
Edward. Jedward.
Scissorhands.
Jedward.
Oh, and Scissorhands.
No, this guy would be Scissorhands.
Oh, yeah, that'd be
Yeah, yeah.
Scissorhands.
Of course,
Yeah,
it's
of course. That's his nickname, though. His real name's Scott.
Ah.
Scott Scissorhands.
Scott Scissorhands
Finch.
McCoy. Oh,
McCoy.
Finch. Okay.
That's good.